We're presenting with the starting position once again. We got the opportunity to play all those initial moves, and from the opening stage we transition towards the middle game. So here's in this lesson we're gonna get to understand how it's done smoothly and successfully. So now once again, a good opening really depends on your ability to relate your pieces with the central squares, or put your pieces closer towards the middle and in a way that they can ideally target your opponent's fortress. So let's go ahead and start out with the move e4. Black continues with e5. At this point we're going to develop the knight. So as the development occurs, development is basically getting the pieces from the initial squares into the more active positions. So the first piece to come into play is going to be our knight. Okay, this is going to be our horsey. It jumps forward right after we push one of the pawns out. The knight comes in right after we get one of the pawns in the middle. Why do we do that? Well, we first create a little border right here, because if we just jumped with our knight, let's say white came out with the move e4 on the first move, and black continued on with knight f6. So instead of putting one of the pawns right here in the middle as a barrier, black decided to get the knight out. And as the knight comes out, at this point white has the opportunity to just keep pushing forward. And as the pawn moves forward, now the pawn is attacking the knight. And as we just learned, when the pawn is cost one point, the knight is cost 3 points. Okay, so in this case the knight is going to have to be constantly moving as white's pawns are pursuing the knight and not letting him stay on that same good position. The knight is going to have to keep on going and going, where black is going to be wasting time on moving the pieces. So what we'd like to do instead is, instead of getting that knight developed right away, what we would want to do, white goes to e4, black continues e5. What we'd want to do is set up a little barrier right here, a little obstacle for the pawn to keep, that would prevent the pawn from keep moving forward. And in this case, e4, e5, white now jumps one of the knights into the game. Now instead of developing symmetrically with the knight from g8 coming to f6, we'd want to defend this pawn first. So we want to defend. Actually, knight f6 is a possibility. That's just another opening. And it's definitely going to be a little bit more on the aggressive side, because in this case, white is going to have the ability to capture that pawn right there on e5. So black continues developing the knight. That is knight coming out to c6. And at this point, we're going to choose to develop either this bishop from f1 or the knight coming from c3 to from b1 coming to c3. So let's go ahead and develop our bishop first. So bishop comes out to c4. At this point, black is going to take care of either the bishop on f8 or the knight on g8 coming to f6. So black decides to get the knight to f6. Now this is actually a two knights defense, and you guys can see why it would be called that way. Black has two knights developed. This is two knights defense. So the first goal that we have in mind in this lesson is for us to complete the development. We want to complete the development and see how we gotta get all the pieces out in order for us to move on to the next stage and be successful at middle game. So here white wants, similarly to black, wants to develop the second knight. So as the bishop is developed, we're going to develop our knight on c3. At this point, what is the next piece that black should be developing at this point? The answer to that is the bishop on f8. Now we could say, well, I want to get my bishop on c8 in the game first. So if we wanted to do that, getting this bishop out on c8 would require for black to move one of the pawns up. So traditionally, we want to combine good central control, which is the center right here, the central control, good central control, with good development. Now, if we move one of these pawns up, you see the bishop cannot jump over one of these pawns to be developed. Okay, it cannot move like a knight. So the bishop would need some space. So as we move the pawn up to develop the bishop, what is going to happen is we're going to block another one of the pieces. So here's the question, what is one of the pieces that we're blocking at this point from developing to a better square? So the answer to that is our bishop on f8 that is being blocked at this point. So we don't want to block that bishop. First, what we want to do, instead of putting this pawn right here on d6, we want to get our bishop out. So as we're getting the bishop out, let's pretend the bishop goes to b4. In this case, we're actually creating a little pressure here where the bishop is targeting the knight. Okay, so this is a good thing for black, putting a little pressure right here. The bishop on c5 would be quite well placed as well. So let's say white says, well, I don't mind the fact that you're going to capture the knight. I'm just going to recapture it with one of my pawns. But at this point, I'm more concerned about developing my bishop on c1. So how could it be done? How can this bishop on c1 be developed? So the answer to that, the answer to the question of how to develop this, our last light piece. So here's the question, what is the light piece? Well, the light piece are not going to be necessarily the pawns, okay? Those are just the pawns. Those would be actually the lightest unit, okay? The smallest unit. But it's not the light piece. The light piece, as opposed to a heavy piece. Here's the bishop. This would be our light piece, okay? This is one of our light pieces. Here's the knight. This is another one of our light pieces, okay? This is another one of our light pieces, okay? Now we got the rook. So guess what? What kind of piece is that? That would be the opposite of a light piece. What would you guys think is the opposite of a light piece? The opposite of a light piece. The opposite of a light piece would be a heavy piece. A heavy piece. A heavy piece. So a queen would be a heavy piece. It wouldn't be the king that would be a heavy piece. The king is just the king. The pawn is just a pawn. Now we got a heavy piece that is the queen. We got light pieces that is the bishop and the knight. This bishop right here, this knight right here, this knight right here, this knight right here. All of this are going to be the light pieces. The heavy pieces are going to be the queens, rooks, and rooks, rook, rook. Right here. Those are going to be the heavy pieces. So now here's the secret to understanding the development. We develop, meaning we're getting all the light pieces out. And as we get the light pieces out, that's when we follow up with development of the heavy pieces. Okay, so first we get the light pieces out, then we get the heavy pieces out. So now, what is the next light piece that white needs to develop? As we spoke about the situation right here, white is going to want to push this pawn up right here to d3 and engage our bishop on c1. Is it a light square bishop or a dark square bishop? The bishop on c1 is a dark square bishop and it's going to go along the diagonal to capture that space, okay, and develop onto a good position right here, either g5, e3, or potentially d2. So how is black, what is the best way for black to continue development in this position? As we're looking at black's position, the last light piece on the board for black to develop in this case would be our bishop right there on c8. What squares is that bishop controlling? Is that the light squares or the dark squares that the bishop is controlling? Looking in this situation, let's check it out. Pawn goes to d6 right here, and the bishop from c8 is now ready to come out along the diagonal c8 to g4. The bishop is ready to come out. And as this bishop is ready to come out, white already prepared a scenario where the bishop from c1 is developing. So we're going to bring our bishop from c1 to g5. The bishop is coming from c1 to g5. And you guys remember the little pressure we put earlier with the bishop tackling the knight on c3. We're actually going to complete this tension, we're going to complete this situation here with bishop capturing the knight. It doesn't have to be done, but in this case black decides to do so. So now coming back to the idea of trading, which one is a more valuable piece? Is it the bishop or the knight? And the answer to that is the pieces are going to be equal or of about equal value. So when the bishop captures the knight and the pawn recaptures the bishop, this is going to be of just about an equal trade, where one piece is traded for another. Each piece is going to be worth how many points? Each one of the pieces is going to be worth about 3 points. The knight is going to be worth just about the value of the bishop. The pawn captures the knight, and now we're going to come back to our topic of development, where black needs to get that last light piece out. And we're actually going to combine it with an interesting situation where pieces are going to be traded. The one that is already developed with the one that is about to be developed. So black is going to develop the bishop from c8 to e6. Just to kind of understand and complete in case you guys have any doubts or something you want to clarify as far as the development of the pieces and what it means, think about it this way. When you're developing the pieces, is you're bringing your teammates together. Chess is a great analogy of a basketball game that you would be playing, and you have the teammates. It's an army that you're leading. It's a team that you're working, that you're managing. So in a way, when the pieces are developing, think about it this way. You have a whole bench of players that are just sitting there and watching the game, and you say, hey, come on out, Eddie, come join the game. And now you got Eddie, you got Mike, you got Michelle. So you got all of your teammates joining the team as you guys are working together and playing together. Otherwise, you would be doing it yourself. You would be trying to go against a team of 4 or 5 players, whereas you're missing all of your teammates are out there either sitting, resting, sleeping, but they're basically not participating, they're not helping you. So what you got to do is bring all of those, in this case pieces, all of those pieces together to work to achieve the common goal.